Welcome to Columbia Rotary on August 17th. Glad you're here. We've got a fun program lined up today. We'll get started with the singing of our national anthem, led by Jerry Payton.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we gather together as we do customarily on Monday. We gather as friends do in good cheer, and we fellowship together. At this time, we take a break from the pressures of our work to give you thanks for the many blessings that we enjoy, including this glorious day in our wonderful country, where we are free to come together at will. We're thankful for the opportunity to be a part of Rotary. We enjoy the benefits of fellowship and more, especially Rotary's focus on service above self. Lord, remind us today and every day when we are working for the least of these, we are working for you. Now, Lord, we ask that you bless us, each one, our friends and our families. We ask you to bless this food, that it will nourish us, and that you will bless our lives to the service of others. We make this prayer in the name of the one everlasting and almighty God. Amen.
You may be seated. To welcome visiting Rotarian guests today, please welcome David Anderson to the stage.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Got to greet everybody coming in. I'm used to greeting people after the service when they leave. So this is sort of new for me. I'm David Anderson. I'm the service pastor at Great Street United Methodist Church. I'm delighted to be here. I want to introduce Ann Wilson from the Five Points as a visiting Rotarian. There she is. Do we have any guests? We'll stand.
I'm Gene Rogers, and it is my high honor and proud pleasure to present to you Elsie Grass Stewart White.
I'm Dan Keaton, and I'm pleased to have as my guest today Hal Stallworth. Hal is a commercial real estate associate in Wilson, Virginia.
Jesse Bullard, and I'm pleased to have as my guest today Bill Brandt, who's going to procure video films.
Hello, Alicia Connors, and I have my boss and president of Film Personnel Services, Charlie Gall.
Good afternoon. I'm Ed Greenleaf, and my guest today is Heather Smith. Heather is a partner with Southern Strategy Group. They're a governmental affairs company here in Columbia. Heather?
I'm Charlie Key, and I'm to have two guests with me this morning. My wife of about 55 years, about 3.5 years I've been in this club. And this is my grandson Perry, who graduated from AC4 in May, and in about 3 weeks will be a freshman at Princeton University.
I'm Jack Sloan. My guest today is Rebecca Jordan, who's the new Executive Director for Red Cross in Central South Carolina. And everyone needs to remember, she grew up inside the walls of Bull Street.
Good afternoon. I'm Libby Gober, and I'm delighted to have my son, Bud Murphy, with me. He thought that our speaker would be entertaining today, so wanted to attend.
I'm Bob Miller. It's a pleasure for me to have this guest today, my brother-in-law Zeke Montgomery.
Let's once again give a welcome to all the visiting Rotarians and out here.
Yeah, welcome to all. Glad you're here. For Health and Happiness today, we're going to hear from Carrie Powers.
All right, if you guys come up here today, don't step back here and fall in the hole back here. Okay, hello everyone. Happy Monday. So I've got a couple of announcements. First, my apologies to Mason for not putting this in the newsletter. The Red Cross needs blood donations. I just posted it on the website, so if you want to make an appointment, you can log on to our website and click through and give the gift of life. Meredith Atkinson started her new job today as the Executive Director of the Vista Guild. And that's a pretty important position, and we wish her the best. I know that she's drinking from the fire hose, so wishing you the best. Sue Williams showed me some fantastic pictures of her son who got married last weekend in West Virginia, and it was picturesque and beautiful, and so we congratulate her on that. And let's see, where is Bob Borum? All right, this guy right here. Today at the Windermere, Bob Borum hit the perfect shot on hole number 9. I mean, come on, you guys. It says he hit a perfect wedge that flew into the hole for a hole-in-one. His golf buddy, Dave Dongees, was with him. Had a hole-in-one earlier this year. He said he's been playing golf for 69 years, and this was only his second. It's a tough game. Congrats. All right, so when I agreed to do Health and Happiness today, I chose this date because I had a different job at the time. And so most of you know that I'm no longer at Free Times, and when I signed on to do Health and Happiness, I really wanted to come in and announce the winners within the club for the Best of Columbia competition, which just ended. They just published the issue last Wednesday. And when we were at Free Times, that was really everything we worked for all year long was the Best of Columbia issue. It's a lot of fun. It's a really straight up, legitimate competition because the readers choose the best. And so I was always really proud of that when I was there. So I thought I would go ahead with that and announce some of the winners in this room who won with Best of Columbia. I don't know if Scott Sanders is here. I didn't see him when I walked in. WIS-TV got Best Local News, and a lot of their anchors won as well, so that's good stuff. Matt Kennel. The continued revitalization of Main Street, won in the categories of Best Improvement in Columbia and Best Use of Public Funds. So, good job. Jack Sloan, Palmetto Lifeline. They won Best Activist Group and Best Kennel and Boarding Facility. So, nice work. Really good job. We've had Kyle Carpenter speak here, and we've also had Marcus Lattimore, both two people that we as a club love very much, and they both won. Let's see, Kyle won Best Local Hero, and Marcus Lattimore was a runner-up, so that's a pretty good honor. Harvest Hope Food Bank, another one of our charities that we love very much here, they won Best Local Charity, and Palmetto Lifeline was a close second, so good work. Is Bill Dukes here? I didn't see him. Blue Marlin, they got Best Place for a Business Lunch and the Best Seafood Restaurant in Columbia, so go and visit Mr. Dukes over there. And a lot of folks in this room are affiliated with the university, so USC got the Best Place to Work. And they also got the Best Continuing Education, which was followed closely by Midlands Tech. And Mr. President, Wells Fargo, Best Bank. Pretty good, yeah. I know it's because of all that you and Holt are doing over there, right? Okay.
Holt takes all the credit.
All the credit. Palmetto Health Park Ridge, Healing Waters, Best Cosmetic Surgery Center. Yeah. Good stuff over there. And Mike Beeger, I saw you somewhere. There you are. Lexington Medical Center, Best Hospital, I think for the 11th year in a row. So congratulations on that. Also took the category of Best Urgent Care. So good work, you guys. So that's really all I had today. I hope that everybody has a really fantastic week and gearing up for football season. Yeah? So thanks. Have a good week.
Okay, we have a Columbia Rotary history moment now from past President Roger Stroop.
Thank you, President Mark, and I thought I'd start off the slide up there today is the 20 original charter members of the Columbia Rotary Club. I'm not sure if you can see the names on them, but some of the names would be familiar to you if you've read Columbia's history. And I know we have some members of our club who are descended from those folks, and we'll be talking about those at another time. The club first met in 1916. Our first meeting place was the Jefferson Hotel. That was the place in Columbia. It had all of the amenities that was necessary for a proper hotel and for the club to meet, including a barber shop. The club met from 1916 to 1927 in the Jefferson Hotel. They met in the Rathskeller, which was in the basement. And by 1927, they were fed up with the Rathskeller and they were fed up with the food. Lots of food complaints. So they moved down the street to the Mary Rose Tea Room, which was up above the Winfield's drugstore, and one of the charter members was Mr. Winfield, who owned the drugstore. The drugstore was on the northwest corner of Main and Hampton Street. This is the 1872 bird's eye view map. It's right across the street from Sylvan's. If you see Sylvan's here, this was the building. And the club met there in the Mary Rose Tea Room until 1931 when they moved back to the Jefferson Hotel. This is what's on the side of the Mary Rose Tea Room and the Winfield drugstore at this point. They moved back to the Jefferson Hotel. This is the Jefferson Hotel from here. Those of you who are aeronautical fans will know that in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s, they would put in a major feature in downtown, they would put the directions to the airport and an arrow pointing north so you could find your way if you were in the air. The club got promoted from the Rathskeller to the ballroom, and the club met in the ballroom at the hotel there from 1931 until the hotel was closed in 1966. Of course, Jefferson Square is on the location of what at that point was the hotel. From 1966 to 1986, we met at the American Legion Hut on Pickens Street. I joined the club when we were there. Charlie Tate was our president the year I joined the club. Met there from 1966 until 1986. At that point, the leadership in the club decided that the club needed somewhere with a little more prestige. The American Legion Hut, we'd outgrown it. It also was getting a little bit worn and not quite the impression that the club wanted. So we moved to the Radisson Hotel on the corner of Assembly and Pendleton Streets. We were there from 1986 to 1992, and that worked well, except for when they needed to use the ballroom for a convention on Mondays, and then the club got demoted to the bar without a bartender. Our most prominent speaker at one of those meetings was probably Dick Lincoln from Shannon Baptist Church, who was one of our keynote speakers while we were there. We were there until 1996. This is the location today, of course. And then we moved to Seawells and the Fairgrounds in 1992, and we were there until 1999 when we moved to Seawells, where we are now across the street. Since we just changed meeting times a couple of months ago, I thought I'd let you know how we met. The club initially met from 1916 to 1922, monthly meetings from 2 to 3 o'clock. Then for a short time in 1922, they went from 12:30 to 1:30, but quickly changed back to 2:15 to 3:15. And in January 1923, the club began meeting semi-monthly from 2 to 3:15. In 1927, they started meeting every Monday at 2:15. By 1954, the club was meeting at 1:30. And we started meeting at 1 o'clock sometime in the 60s. I haven't been able to find that date out yet. So from the 1960s until last year, we met at 1 o'clock. And of course, last year, we began meeting at 12:30. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. Great job. That's interesting. We have a special announcement now, or special presentation, I should say, from Bob Millhouse, Service Above Self Award. So welcome Bob on the stage.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Nice to see everybody's smiling face. I'm Bob Millhouse. Many of you probably don't know who I am, but President Mark has asked that I briefly tell you a little bio about myself before we get into some additional information. I'm a licensed CPA in the state of South Carolina. I've been practicing for 30 years. My hat's off to Crawford Clarkson and Andrew for his dad, who got me into practice some 30 years ago. And I have my own firm here in Columbia. I do audits, atypical CPA firm compared to what a typical CPA firm is probably known for doing taxes. I don't do taxes. So I stay out of that aspect of things. I do a lot of litigation support, audits, business consulting, and I'm recognized as a performance measurement specialist by the AICPA, and I'm also a certified government finance manager. But I'm here today to talk to you about the Education Foundation of the Columbia Rotary Club and its scholarship program. Many of you may not know that the central part of us, the Columbia Rotary Club, is to raise money for the annual Columbia Rotary Scholarships. The club awards $40,000 annually to qualified and deserving students each year, and that's through the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation. As the club treasurer, and I've been a member for 18 years here, it is my responsibility to not only oversee all financial activities of the club, but to help ensure that resources are available in the Education Foundation to help underwrite our scholarship program. That, in fact, is all of our responsibility as members. Major fundraising events, along with direct financial support from you, the members, and from our investments, help provide the resources annually to make this scholarship commitment. Recently, members, you have received your due statement, and on that due statement is a note asking for a contribution to not only Rotary International, but also to the Educational Foundation. Please consider your financial support. It will be greatly appreciated for this upcoming scholarship award season. This past spring, the club hosted LeaderCast 2015 as its major fundraising event for scholarships for the FY 14-15 budget year, which just ended June the 30th. I'm pleased to report the financial results from LeaderCast 2015. Whoops. Carrie, that's your cue.
I know. It's telling me it won't open it.
Okay, well, they say in the radio and the TV business not to talk a lot about numbers, but here we go. LeaderCast 2015 was a new program for Columbia Rotary Club and the Educational Foundation to set forth the fundraising mechanism for the scholarship program. We had sponsors that totaled $15,000 for the event. We had ticket sales totaling $28,600 that was through Eventbrite, the online service that we used. We had cash ticket sales of $6,900. Gross sales for this event was $50,500. Thank you to you, Columbia Rotary. Costs associated with the event, which total about $19,000, and so we netted to the Education Scholarship Program nearly $31,000. Thank you again, Columbia Rotary. Many of you helped make this possible, and a special thanks to Canty Heath and the University of South Carolina for allowing us to use the Glen Ward School of Business auditorium. It was a great venue and a great opportunity for it to show itself to the Columbia Rotary Club and for the Columbia Rotary Club to show itself to the business community. Two individuals of our club made great efforts to make this event happen for its success. Would John Johnson and Jack Sloan please come to the podium? While they're coming up, I will share with you a few behind scenes. Come on, Jack. Last year, John Johnson, as your fearless president, right here, front and center. John asked me what I thought about his plan for the club hosting LeaderCast 2015 as a major fundraising event for scholarships. We were preparing the budgets for the club and for the foundation, and I'd have to admit, John, I was pretty skeptical with your numbers. John, Jack, and I ran several scenarios and numbers because this was uncharted territory. Planning the event was a huge undertaking. And John started this thought process and planning in 2013, I believe he had told me. I remember one board meeting we had last winter where John firmly told the board, we're going to do this, and it will be successful. In the parking lot before last month's board meeting, John asked me about LeaderCast and whether I, as treasurer, was happy with the results. John, as I stated to you then, it was through your vision, direction, persistence, and above all, your leadership, that LeaderCast 2015 was a success for the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation. John, I'm happy. Mr. Sloan, Jack was on board with this program from the very first day. He coordinated and orchestrated many of the program's logistics, including establishing and overseeing the online ticket sales service of Eventbrite for members to go online and purchase their tickets. He constantly monitored our progress of ticket sales, gave me and the board updates every meeting. Jack, your enthusiasm diligent work efforts, and always a glass half full approach provided comfort to a number of us on the board, including a certain bean counter. Throughout the months of planning and ticket sales, Jack would state at meetings, "I believe we're going to make it. This is going to be great. Why isn't the treasurer smiling?" Jack, I'm smiling. Like all of the club's work, including various community service projects, as well as hosting major fundraising events, it takes hard work, discipline, dedication, perseverance, and leadership. These two individuals have exemplified the motto of Rotary, service above self. Would Elliot Powell please come to the front of the podium? For this accomplishment, President Mark has determined that a Service Above Self award is to be granted. President Mark, with your permission, I present to you John Johnson and Jack Sloan as the Service Above Ward awardees, and Elliot Powell will present the award.
The first award goes to John B. Johnson from the Columbia Rotary Club, District 7770. We hereby recognize John for outstanding service above self, for tireless efforts in raising significant funds for student scholarships through the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation with the program June 18th, 2015, the Brave Ones Leader Cast. And much the same in terms of what's written, there's a name change. Jack C. Sloan. Columbia Rotary Club, District 7770, hereby recognizes you for outstanding service above self, for tireless efforts in raising significant funds for student scholarships through the Columbia Rotary Education Foundation with the program June 18th, 2015. There you are, sir.
Great job, guys. I know the committee existed of many Rotarians, Doc Ryle, Jim Morris, Ellen Weaver, to name a few, and on behalf of the club, we want to thank the entire committee for their hard work. With that, I'm going to turn it over to John Bacus, who will introduce our speaker today.
Thank you. Glad to see everybody here today. Glad to see the room full because we have a great opportunity today. But what I want to mention to you for a minute is I've got this job, you see, and the job is to make sure we have good presenters each week. And I couldn't do it without a lot of help from you all. A number of you have come up with great speakers and have convinced them to come speak at our club. I thank you for that combined effort. But it is a lot of work, and it's a lot of work to make sure these people get here and they have what they need and so forth and so on. And all of these folks, and as you know so far this year, we've had great speakers. We've had people that have informed us. I wasn't so sure about what the aerospace world would be like, but now I sure know what's going on in South Carolina in the world of aerospace, and it's amazing. It's amazing what's going on in this state. So every week that I come to a meeting, I learn something new, and I think all of you do as well. And we have to respect the people who come to speak to us, to take time out of their schedules, and a lot of these people are extremely busy. And they come in, they spend a lot of work preparing for their presentations, and they come in and they do a great job for us. We just need to make sure we get here to hear them. We can't let these fantastic speakers come here and see a room 1/3 empty or half empty or whatever. As Rotarians, we are lucky to have people of this caliber come present to our club. And I want to ask you to make an extra special effort to be here for those meetings, to come to every meeting you can, because I guarantee you, you'll learn something if you come. Every meeting I come to, I'll learn something that I didn't know before. So I'll ask your support in that effort. And right now, I would like to introduce to you another one of those amazing presenters. This guy has been a member of our club since 2002. He is a humorist and inspirational speaker who travels the country doing just what he's going to do for you here today, and he earns the big bucks out there doing that. Fortunately, today, we don't have to pay him the big bucks. He's been kind enough to give us a gift, a real gift today, and we are so grateful to have this opportunity to hear this guy. He is such a wonderful entertainer and such an inspirational speaker. And I want to introduce to you my friend and fellow Rotarian, Glen Ward.
Thank you very much, John. Since I know I'm not getting paid, now I'm going to stop at 125 regardless of what. I'm just going to stop. It's a real honor to be invited to be a part of the program today, and you've greeted me kindly and warmly. Charlie Kate and others have been so kind, and then Carl Roberts came up and said to me, Glenn, due to my time schedule today, I'm very sorry to inform you that I'm going to be able to sit through your entire presentation. So, you know, they're out there in the audience already. I'm expecting that. Just want to have a good time with you, as I've always done. What John didn't tell you is I was his back pocket speaker, because they had invited Senator Lindsey Graham to speak. And of course, he's out frying fish or wherever he is, bigger fish in Iowa or whatever. And he couldn't come. He'll probably come later, I'm sure. But I guess I can add to my website bio now that I have filled in for Senator Lindsey Graham. I'm going to make sure that's updated. But that's not the first time this has happened. Back in January of 1996, our late, great former Rotarian member, Charlie Sloan, dear friend of mine, Ellen Charlie Sloan, called me and asked me, this was before I joined Rotary, asked me if I would come to the Columbia Rotary Club, which met at Seawells within the fairgrounds gate there, and come and present one of my programs to his 300 and some member club. Gave me all the details. January 22nd, 1996. I said, yes, Dr. Sloan, I'll be honored to come, and we had that set. He called me right back a few days later and said, Glenn, I'm so sorry. He said, we have this member of our club named Rusty DePass. And Rusty DePass knows Bob Dole. And he has Bob Dole, the presidential candidate, coming to speak to our club on January 22nd. There's a conflict. Will you please be kind enough to defer to the Senator Dole and come at another date? I really apologize. I said, Dr. Sloan, no problem. I'll be happy to do that. And then he called me back a couple of days later and said, Rusty DePass does not have Bob Dole coming out. Oh, he was just on the ground crawling and said, please forgive me, Glenn, I'm so sorry. I said, Dr. Sloan, don't worry, I'll come. And I got there that day. The news had not gotten out that Bob Dole was not coming. The place was packed. Cameras were there. People brought their children there. It was one of the greatest things that could ever happen, and it just played very well into what we were doing. So, Rusty, thank you for setting that up. That really did happen. Happened. So you think about all these sorts of things, and I have my notes. I spoke when I was inducted into this club in June of 2002. I presented that evening here for the Spouses Night, as it was called. I've done health and happiness many, many times. So what I've done, I've looked over my notes, and I have compiled a list of things that I want to do today, which really will sort of unfold and unpack in a humorous way, hopefully, who I am and how I became a public speaker many years ago. So here goes. First question I get as a presenter, when I show up somewhere and I'm out of town speaking somewhere, folks want to know, as I'm at a social hour, having fun with them, now, who are you? I know you're not part of our organization. Who are you? And I said, well, my name tag says right here, I'm your speaker this evening. And people who have been engaged with me in conversation will back away because they know that I'm getting ready to use what they just told me. It's spooky how it happens. It's wonderful to watch that work. And the second thing I get is, now what are you going to talk about? And I'll say, well, no PowerPoints, no handouts, nothing heavy or technical. I'll leave that to the other presenters. Just some good, clean fun with a light message. And the relief comes over their face. You can see it in their eyes. Thank you so much that we have something different. And then people ask me, where do I get my material? I'm from Kingstree, South Carolina, originally. I go to family reunions to see my Aunt Ludell, and my Aunt Vernell, and my Aunt Annabelle. But I go there to get material more than anything else. Because I promise you, all you have to do is sit and eat and watch these wonderful people whom you love, and the material comes flying at you. Well, material is everywhere. You can just go with me to the Columbiana Mall today. As a humorist and inspirational speaker, I travel and I watch people everywhere I go. It's something I do. I can't help it. And you can sit on a bench with me and eat ice cream with me and close your eyes and dream up people and open your eyes. Within 15 minutes, it will come walking by. Humanity, it's there. Dr. Charlie Sloan, mentioned him again, when he turned 80 years old, he celebrated his 80th birthday right here at Rotary. He said to us, now that I'm 80 years old, I've come to realize that my life is almost half over. Just open your eyes and ears. It is actually out there. It's a wonderful thing to see it unfold. Now then, things people say, somebody said here in Columbia not long ago, I was looking at the calendar the other day and realized that Thanksgiving falls on a Thursday this year. I'm very happy he recognized that fact. Then you have people who say all kind of crazy things, like at speaking engagements in Charleston one day, talking to a guy in a social hour, and he was telling about this operation he'd had on his neck, and that within itself was not funny. But what is funny was he said they had to grab some Godiva bone into his neck. So I guess Lady Godiva. And I want to say, sir, you're going to have a strange craving for chocolate before this whole thing. The things you hear and you see, you take what we humorists do is we duplicate this and tell it as it comes to us. In real life, you don't have to make it up, it comes to you. My son Trey surprised me today. He's a rising sophomore at USC. He's in the back of the room. You've known Trey. I brought him here since he was so small that I had to stand him up in the chair to introduce him to the club the first day when he was about 6 years old. He's 19 years old now, and when he was about 11, we were riding down the road one day, and he asked me questions, and he fired this one at me. He said, Daddy, Mommy said that when I was born, you were there in the hospital room when she had me. I said, Trey, I was at the Lexington Hospital in your mom's room, birthing room, right by her bedside when she gave birth to you. I was there 3 years later when she gave birth to your sister Emily. What do you want to know? He said, well, Mommy said whenever she had me, the doctor handed you the scissors and you cut the extension cord. At least he didn't call it the unbiblical cord. Things you hear every day from home at Rotary. It's out there. And then you hear things like this. This nurse told me, and for those of you in healthcare, people tell you that Dr. Mill, you hear these things all the time. This nurse came to me in Raleigh, North Carolina, and she said, Glenn, she said, I work in the labor and delivery area of my hospital, and one night a patient was wheeled in there and obviously getting ready to have a baby, and we examined her and told her everything was great. Her baby's heartbeat was fine. She was doing well. Her vitals were fine. Her doctor had been called. He was on the way. Lie here. Take it easy. You're going to be fine. She said that lady looked back at her very nervously, as nervous as any patient had ever been, and said, I want you to call my doctor on his cell phone right now and get him to this hospital right now because I want him to come here and seduce me and take care of this thing right now. That's not what she meant to say. That's as far as we're going to go with that. Things you hear. Now, people ask me, well, when, Glenn, when did you begin watching people and studying people? This happened when you were about your son's age, 19, 20 years old? No. It happened when I was a little boy. I watched people carefully at school. I couldn't help it. It just came to me, just something, watching teachers and observing them. We had a teacher by the name of Mrs. Dozier at my school in Andrews, South Carolina. And I still can't figure this out because Ms. Dozier did not want us children going out on the playground and playing and coming into the building before the bell rang. You stayed out there and you played out there until the bell rang. Well, we wanted to get some lukewarm water out of the Halsey Taylor water fountain. That's all we were up to. Kids have stuff in rooms now you can bother. Smart boards and laptops. We had an oscillating fan. That's what we had in our school. Anyhow, there was nothing in there to bother. But she would see us coming, trying to walk in the door, and she'd say, go back down that hole. You better go back down that hole. So what do you think I did? I would change classes and I'd say, you better go back down that hall. And I started doing this, and the teachers found out about it, and as I changed classes, they had me imitating my other teachers. They put me into it. This has been going on a long time. I don't think I'll ever recover from this, but it's something that started as a child. And then it translated for me into my adult years. Now, I know I shared this at Health and Happiness years ago, but it's been a long time. Let me re-share this. And by the way, about repeating things like that, I spoke at Bob Crutchfield's church, Ashland Almost United Methodist Church, a while back. And Bob wasn't there, but it was for the seniors group, and I was there, I've been there several times, and I told this man, I said, sir, I was just here about a year ago speaking, and I said, he said, don't worry about repeating any material. He said, we hide our own Easter eggs around here. But you hear these sorts of things, and with people, you're watching people carefully, you're studying people carefully, and this is something I told, but it actually happened, and it translated to the real world. Years ago, I worked with First Citizens Bank. And there was stress on the job. And I learned as a child that stress can be relieved at school if you allow it to be relieved at school. And part of the way I did that was imitating people and having a good day. Well, at work one day, I found out this buddy of mine by the name of Mike had asked this girl, single guy had asked this single girl out for a date. So Mike had asked her out on a date around the policy of the bank. They did not want you dating your coworkers. And Mike had absolutely, deliberately gone around that bank policy to ask her out on this date. And I found out about it. Now, if you're going to do this, call someone when they're half asleep before they have their first jolt of caffeine in the morning. I called Mike and told him I was Bob Brazel, the Executive Vice President of the bank. Some of you remember Bob Brazel. And he said, hello. I said, Mike, Bob Brazel, how you doing? He said, Mr. B, I'm all right. How are you? I'm not doing so well. Did you ask Kathy out on a date? He said, sir, I did, but come to think about it, that's against bank policy. What are you going to do about it? He said, sir, if you give me 3 minutes, I'll call her and I'll cancel that date, and I'll never do anything like that. When will you take care of it? Sir, just give me 3 minutes, and I'll think what you do is you hang up and speed dial him back before he can do anything. I said, Mike, this is Glenn. You want to go play golf today and have lunch? No, I've got to get off this phone with you right now. Mr. Brazel just called me. He found out about my date with Kathy. I'm about to get fired. I've got to call Kathy right now. Did it sound kind of like this? I won't tell you what he said to me. We'll keep this Rotary friendly, but he got over it. He got over it. So I did that because it worked, and it brought stress relief at work. And it was something that I enjoyed doing. I learned to do it as a child, and it's carried with me to this day. And it's something I do wherever I go. It's just who I am. It's part of my makeup. And I get this question all the time. Well, Glenn, how 22 years ago did you leave your bank job to become a speaker? Very easy. I began going out and giving talks to Rotary clubs, church groups, and all sorts of wonderful folks on a local level, not-for-profit groups and so on and so forth, and then business. I thought it was a fluky thing that was going to play its way out. But rather than doing that, the business groups began calling, and I got invites here and there. And here I am today, 22 and a half years later, doing this, and never worked a day in my life since that time. And I'm very grateful for that. I really am. But part of the key to that was this. There was a repertoire of humor that I developed, music and message and impersonations, but the cornerstone at the time was that of Senator Strom Thurmond. Now, I just do an honorable mention now, but as you can imagine, when he was alive and well and in office, there was more material coming at me than the law should allow. So I had tremendous fun with this. And it wasn't just impersonating, it was calling people before caller ID and wishing them a happy birthday in his voice, only to find out they had saved their messages until this day. Refused to delete the message off of their answer. It's amazing how wonderful these things happen. But Senator Thurmond would say things like, the reason people are living longer today is because they're not dying sooner. It's too good to be true. I think I've shared this with you before, but true story was debriefing the General Norman Schwarzkopf, late now General Schwarzkopf, chairing the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator Graham says we change senators in South Carolina every 50 years, whether we need to or not. Senator Thurmond had this clout of seniority, and he was sitting there. It was being beamed around the world, and I used to hold my breath when I saw him on television because I knew something was going to be said. His staffers seated behind him, his colleagues to his right and left, and There he was. The camera turned on to that orange glow of hair, a mix of kiwi shoe polish and Tang breakfast cream coming over. And there he was, debriefing this General, reading his questions. How do you feel the United States military did in the Persian Gulf War? And after the staffer interpreted to the general, Senator, we went over there and 43 days later we accomplished our mission. I'm very proud of all branches of the armed forces. Senator Thurman looked back at his notes and said, if the general answers yes, ask him if he also feels other military action might be needed. Didn't bother me one bit. Didn't bother me one bit. It's too good to be true sometimes. Now, hastening on, let me change gears just a minute. I've been fascinated with people from the music world too, and over the years here in Health and Happiness, I've shared some things with you, but people ask me this question, Glenn, where did you get your music training and so on and so forth? I have none. Unless you want to count the homemade kind that comes with your dad as a minister, and your mom plays piano in church, and you are forced. I really thought I could call the Department of Social Services about this for child abuse, but I never did, but I think it would qualify. Forced to stand by the piano at home in your parsonage home and learn to sing old songs for church. I didn't want to do it as a kid. I did not want to do it, but my mother made me do this, and I love music now, all genres of music. But I'm fascinated with those who sing, and especially what I call the opera ladies now, who show up at church. Now, Rex, I know your wife has a lovely voice, and I'm not picking on Paula. But I'm telling you, they come to church now. We used to just get Miss So-and-so from church to come sing in the wedding, and you knew her, and she knew you, and it was all right. Now they're bringing in these ladies from Charlotte and New York and wherever, and they're bringing them in, and they're Juilliard trained, and they have the facial things that go along with everything, and when they sing and look like this. It doesn't start at first, but it kicks in. It comes and goes. And it looks like this. Where he leads me, and it goes away. He leads me. If it goes away, why doesn't it just stay away? I've never figured that out, but that's what's happening. And then, if you really want to hear Ave Maria done right and well, you haven't heard it until you hear Aaron Neville sing. Ave Maria, it just goes on and on with so much vibration, it shakes the whole room. Now, one other, and then I have some closing remarks, and I'm like the preacher who folds his Bible, and his little boy said, Mama, what does that mean that man folds that Bible? She said, honey, with that guy, absolutely nothing. We're coming to something here. We were watching TV one night, obviously a few years ago, and the Bee Gees were on television. My wife said, ooh, please leave it there. I said, what? She said, leave it there. I said, okay. So I handed her the remote control. And the reason I did that, I'm a professional remote control changer. Because, you know, we men, we don't find anything on TV we like, so I have to hand it to her if we're going to watch anything for any length of time. And she was soaking this up. In my former banker, male, analytical mind, I'm trying to figure out how these three brothers, alive and well at the time, singing together, could be so different in their delivery of music. The guy in the middle, the brother Robin, who always stood in the middle with the pronounced overbite, sang differently than his brother Barry. And I'm watching this. My wife is really watching this. I can dream of younger days when living for my life was everything a man could want to do. I could never see tomorrow. No one said a word about the sorrow. Barry said, he did that, my wife said, Trey, don't tell Mom I said this. I don't know what means. I have no idea what that means or why my wife likes it. Sometimes I walk through the house, hey Denise, what honey? I'm going to leave that right where it is too. Watching folks, these larger than life people, oftentimes they have egos as big as the all outdoors. They service in the political arena, musical celebrities, they're everywhere, Rotary, everywhere we go. But let me end on this note, if I may, very quickly. I've also taken the time in life to notice the quiet people as well. I really do. I could list you a long name, I don't have time to do that, but let me lift up just one name for you today, if I may, and that's my dad. My dad is in his 80s now, has some health issues, and just yesterday I accompanied him so he could help officiate a funeral for a former church member at a church he pastored 49 years ago down the lower part of the state. I had to hold his hand as we made our way out of the car into the church and back and forth and so on and so forth, but it was a joy to be with my dad. I know this is Rotary and not church, but there's a purpose here, the service above self point that I'd like to make if you'll allow me to make it very quickly. I've seen a lot of things, I've heard a lot of things, I enjoy duplicating a lot of things, but this is something I saw when I was a little boy, well before I became an adult, well before I became a Rotarian, about service above self. I've heard my dad preach many sermons. I figured it out one day, thousands, literally thousands. But it was not so much what he said to me, but what he did in front of me that really has grabbed my attention. We lived when I was a little boy for a few years, 4 years, in the little town of Bamberg. And in that town there was a cotton mill. The cotton mill is no longer there. There's just a smokestack there, kind of like a monument to what used to be the town. A lot of the folks are no longer there that were there when I was a little boy. But the town's, of course, still there, and the smokestack to the cotton mill. It's always a joy to go back to Bamberg. When I was a little boy there, we lived on a parsonage on Church Street, right next to the church, and right down the street there was a couple, and a man by the name of Mr. Doc Warren. Dr. Milling, he was not a doctor, but he was called Doc, a wonderful man. My dad wanted that man to come to his church. The man didn't go to worship anywhere, Rex. He was unchurched. So my dad wanted this man to go to his church. So my dad got me in the car with him one day and said, let's go see Mr. Doc Warren. We drove down the street, pulled over. Dad obviously had this prearranged. Mr. Warren came and got in the car, and off we went somewhere. They were talking about catching a dishpan full of red breast fish out of the Edisto River. I remember that. Whatever else they talked about, it was adult conversation. I don't remember it. But I remember this. Daddy said to Mr. Warren, he said, if you'll come to my house on a Saturday afternoon, I'll give you a free haircut. My dad, years ago, to supplement his ministerial income, was a barber. And he kept his barber bag. And one day, Mr. Warren knocked on our back door at the parsonage and came in for his senior citizen's free haircut. And Dad said, go get a chair. So I went to Mom's table and got a chair and brought it into the utility room where we had a linoleum floor and sat it down. Dad said, give my barber tools. I reached over the washer, dryer, open thing, and there his canvas bag was with all this stuff. And Mr. Warren sat down, and Dad took this cloth and wrapped it around him and put the little pin back there so the hair wouldn't get on his clothing. And off he went cutting Mr. Warren's hair. And I watched this, and I say this not being rude or ugly or disrespectful, but there was something going on. Mr. Warren had a little something like this where his head moved. Just one of those things. And I dared not go watch cartoons that morning because I knew that Daddy had told me that if I didn't sit perfectly still in his chair while he cut my hair, that he might nick my ear. And I was waiting on my daddy to cut this man's ear half off so I could watch my daddy reach into that bag and get that vial of septic, whatever it is, that stops bleeding and burns like a match and set this man on fire. I was really waiting for this, but Dad went around Mr. Warren's head, and bless his dear heart, my dad was cutting his hair on this moving target, and this man's head was moving, and right on down there, never cut his ear, thankfully. Mr. Warren kept coming back and back for these free haircuts, and one day he joined the church. Long story short, I was in Bamberg a few years ago. I was there to speak for a group, and afterwards I said, I want to go by and see where I used to live. I drove down Church Street past the cotton mill, it's no longer there, down to where the church is still there, the parsonage is still there, rode around back to where I used to play. The yard where I used to play looked like a football field, but now it looks like a postage stamp, it's so small. I don't know how that happens, but anyhow, I was looking around, there's a building built out there since we left as a family, moved on to other places. And on the cornerstone of that building, the name's inscribed with the trustees. Verdine Gunnels, well, I remember her. Doc Warren, his name was inscribed on the cornerstone, and is inscribed on the cornerstone of that fellowship building. And I thought to myself, as I sat in my car with the air conditioner blowing, just sitting there idling and just thinking of things, what if my dad had not gone down the street, picked up Mr. Doc Warren in his genuine care and love for his fellow man? What if he had not done that? Some of those other things may or may not have ever happened, but they did happen. And my dad taught me firsthand through his acts of love for his fellow man that there is this thing called service above self. And that's why I love my church, and that's why I love my church family, and that's why I love Rotary, my Rotary family. I wouldn't have it any other way, and that's why I might have broken some Rotary rule, I don't know, but years ago when I brought my son Trey to this club and stood him in the chair, and I brought my daughter Emily and my wife and others to come, I want them to see what this is all about. Because there is this beautiful blessing called service above self. And we can talk all we want to talk, but when we walk and live it out, it's better seen. God bless you.
Let's not wait so long. That was a lot of fun. Thank you. We have a token of our appreciation, Glenn. Thanks for doing this, and sure appreciate everything you said. President-elect John, what's coming up the next 2 weeks? And see if we can top that.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to top. Next week, Steve Wilmot, the Executive Director of the Heritage Golf Tournament, will be here with us, so bring your golfing friends. That'll be a really interesting discussion of golf. And then the week after that, Trey Gowdy.
All right.
The man who's trying to figure out what happened in Benghazi will be here, and I found out that he can't talk much about that, so don't ask that question. But he will be here, and that's going to be an exciting day, so bring all your political friends 2 weeks from today.
Great, thank you. Let's stand and sing.